I'd like to read an excerpt from a letter to the editor of the Williamsport Sun-Gazette, written by a woman. Many of the unemployment problems in our country stem from feminism. There were not many women doctors and lawyers back in the 1950s when women were happy to stay at home and take care of the kids. There are now more women doctors than there are men doctors. Women have taken away many jobs from men. There are households where either only the woman works and the man stays home, or the woman makes more than the man. There are also more single-parent households than ever before. The head of these households are mostly working women. This contributed to raising a generation of boys who are soft and effeminate compared to men a generation ago who had fathers in their lives. No wonder kids today are messed up. They are raised in an unnatural environment. I grew up here on this farm I was born in 1947, so my formative years would have been the 50s. And I was an only child, a very precocious only child, I might mention, because I was with adults and nobody ever talked down to me. So I was very verbal. And I learned to read very early because it was something I could do by myself. So I had lots of ideas that probably my parents weren't too sure about. But I don't recall that we ever really discussed things like that. Life was simply the way it was, and there wasn't much of a change going to happen. I was in an accelerated class in school. I was lucky enough to be intelligent enough to be in an accelerated class, and I graduated in 1964. In 1962, I went to my guidance counselor, and I said, I'd like to go to medical school. And this is a direct quote, and he said it just like this: Janet, girls don't go to medical school, girls go to nursing school. So perhaps that's where it all started, I don't know. But as it turns out, I did go to nursing school, and I graduated in 1967, which was pretty much certainly not the beginning of the women's movement, but the women's movement was coming into prevalence, as was the counterculture. Flower power, hippies. I was on the boardwalk in Atlantic City when they paraded the sheep down the boardwalk with the Miss America the banner. And by the way, nobody burned their bras. They did throw them into garbage cans, but nobody burned them. Then in the early 70s, I became involved with an information and referral agency. And I got to meet some people who were very much involved in the women's movement and realized that these were indeed kindred spirits and that they were saying things that I knew and that I accepted and that I believed in. People from Lycoming College, mostly. We pretty much ran the gamut. There were people who were looking for housing, people who had drug issues, people who had domestic violence issues. As a matter of fact, Wise Options for Women is a direct offshoot of Help Yourself Incorporated. But all sorts of things, people who were new to the area and simply didn't know anything about the area. People called us for any number of strange things. We're more visible now. Feminists today probably are more accepted than they were, except by people like Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck. I think, as a rule, most people understand that the movement is not simply for butchy lesbian women, which is pretty much what people were thinking back in the 70s. I was on a local TV show, a friend of mine and I. Both of us had long hair. Both of us were pretty well endowed. We were obviously girls. And a man called in and accused us of, so, you're all lesbians. You just want to be men. No, that's not true. Feminism is also humanism, or can be, and I think that's what actually a lot of us intended it to be, that it was simply equal rights for everybody and equal pay for equal work. I pretty much left the organized women's movement because I felt that we were frightening people. I thought that I could make more of an impact in smaller groups or one-on-one. Because if you sit down and talk one-on-one to people, very few of them will disagree with the idea of equal pay for equal work or equal rights for everybody. Whereas when you come at them en masse, it tends to drive them away. I'm so afraid that a lot of young women think that the fight is over, and it isn't. Yes, we have made progress, but we still have a long, long way to go.